Good morning. It is Monday, September 12th. I'm Shane Seeley, and this is the CBC Morning Report. Leading our news this morning, the Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Investment, Ryan Strawn, says learning to use underutilized special drawing rights at the International Monetary Fund to facilitate more innovative guarantees through development banks can be extended to partnerships Barbados has with other countries. Minister Strawn made the suggestion yesterday morning as he addressed the UNCTAD South Expo in Thailand. The objective of the Thematic Solution Forum is to provide an opportunity to governments, international organizations, and academia to reflect and debate on the role of South-South economic integration in the post-COVID recovery of developing countries. Minister Strawn says Barbados is actively working in this area as he's scheduled to lead a debate in Parliament tomorrow for Barbados to facilitate the execution of a debt for nature swap.
This is particularly important after the pandemic, where vulnerable travel-dependent countries like Barbados are now required to pursue innovative financing options. The debt for nature swap is supported by a counter-guarantee agreement with the Inter-American Development Bank and the Nature Conservancy. This allows us to divert existing debt service in order to facilitate enhanced marine conservation and other environmental commitments. In a similar vein, we are currently having discussions with countries within our hemisphere to determine how to use underutilized special drawing rights at the International Monetary Fund to facilitate more innovative guarantees through regional development banks. We believe that this tool could be extended on a South-South basis. Since coming to office in May 2018, Barbados has been a strong advocate for global cooperation. The predominantly nationalist response by developed nations during the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated to all the need for stronger South-South partnerships.
Mr. Strawn, who addressed the high-level panel discussion in Thailand virtually, also contended the best way for the Global South movement to adequately address emerging global challenges is by cooperating amongst themselves.
Early this month, Barbados hosted the first Afro-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, sponsored by the African Exim Bank in partnership with Invest Barbados and Export Barbados. By any measure, the forum was a rousing success, attended by over 700 delegates from several African countries and the diaspora, and 300 persons from the Caribbean region. The opportunity to share knowledge, forge business partnerships, and share meaningful cultural experiences was well received. We look forward to hosting even more delegates in the future. Barbados has also signed memoranda of understanding to facilitate direct airlift between both regions, with Barbados providing a jump-off point to the wider Caribbean. We have already received expressions of interest from several carriers to fly these routes. Hopefully, the journey to the next African Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum will be much shorter and faster.
That's the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn, speaking about a recent forum in Thailand and our cooperation that is needed with South-South nations. Coming up here on the Morning Report, updates on the COVID-19 pandemic and on the war in Ukraine. Barbados recorded 25 new cases of COVID-19 out of 302 tests conducted by the Best Dos Santos Public Health Laboratory on Saturday. Of that number, there were 4 people under the age of 18 and 21 persons 18 years and older. There are now 51 people in isolation facilities and 458 people in home isolation. No deaths were recorded, and the number of people who died from the viral illness remains at 556. Under the National Vaccination Program for COVID-19, the total number of people with at least 1 dose of a vaccine stands at 163,429. The total number of people who are fully vaccinated is 154,487. Minister of Education Kay McConney says her ministry continues to rely on the expertise of the Ministry of Health as its biggest partner in the fight against COVID-19. She was responding to queries about what would happen in the event there is a spike in COVID-19 cases in the school system during the new school term. The minister notes once consultation has taken place, they would then engage other key educational partners on the way forward.
One of the things that we have reiterated is that the protocols are what they are now. However, they're constantly being monitored, we're constantly reevaluating, and we are very open to reviewing. Our first interest is ensuring that we create the right kind of environment for learning and for instruction. And in the event that we believe that that is threatened significantly and that the ability of our students to be able to learn in a safe environment is in fact something that's being compromised, we will take the necessary decisions.
Let's go further afield now. Ukraine's eastern region has suffered a total blackout a day after a counterattack by Kiev troops forced the Russian army to retreat from large tracts of the Kharkiv region. Now, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is accusing Moscow of deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure.
Since early September, their advance has been fast, with Ukraine taking back in days ground that it took the Russians months to control. Well, Kyiv's forces have entered the key towns of Izium and Kupiansk, both located on rail lines. Advances have also been made by Ukraine in the south near Kherson, but at a slower pace. Well, President Volodymyr Zelensky claims his troops have recaptured more than 2,000 square kilometers so far. Ukrainian flags are being raised in towns that have been controlled by Moscow's forces for months. The Russian defense minister says its troops are regrouping in order to bolster efforts in the Donetsk region. Well, Hoda Abdel Hamid is live for us in Kharkiv. What's the latest you're hearing about the advances? And we understand that you've been in a difficult situation there in terms of a blackout. Is that right?
There is power outages in 5 regions in the northeast and the eastern part of the country. There are also unconfirmed reports that there are power outages all the way to Odessa, but as I said, those were unconfirmed reports. Now, what we're hearing from officials is that the Russians have hit critical infrastructure. They're not telling us what or where, but certainly there is this city is in pitch black. We were actually on the streets when that happened, and as we were driving back to our location, everything was completely dark. There was not one light on. It was quite an eerie scene. As we understand it, this is happening also in Ukraine's 4th largest city, Dnipropetrovsk. Is happening, for example, in Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region, so in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbass, and it's happening also in the Sumy region. We don't know at this stage how long this will last. Officials in the various regions have also been telling people to unplug their devices, electric devices, if they don't need them. They have been telling them also to stock up on water. They say that the repairs are ongoing, but people are wondering how long that would last.
Let's go over to Pearson now to hear what he has coming up on today's edition of Mornin Barbados. Pearson, what are you looking at today?
Good morning, Shane. Good morning, everyone. Coming up at 6:30 when you join me for Morning Barbados, we'll have our conversations on CARICOM. As you do know, this time last week, Ambassador David Commichon was on his way to Belize to present his credentials as a non-resident High Commissioner to Belize. We asked for a report then, a report we shall have. Let's find out what he has been up to while there, so look out for that in our conversations on CARICOM. Also today, the church as a safer place to worship. What does that mean? Well, it's part of an initiative by the Anglican Diocese of Barbados, part of their Mission Action Plan. There's an upcoming webinar, and we'll tell you when and what about and how you can be a part of it. And also this morning, when you join me at 6:30, we'll give you 5 keys to safer food. What are those keys? How can you unlock the areas of safer food? All of that our food technologist will share with us when she joins us in just a little while. Just what you can look forward to when you join me at 6:30 for Morning Barbados. Back to you, Shane.
Thank you, Pearson. Well, residents of Erie Hill, St. George, they're upset and they're threatening legal action. You'll find out why in a few moments after this break right here on the Morning Report. Residents of Erie Hill, St. George are threatening legal action following the blockage of an access road in the community. They have staged a protest outside the fenced area, which some say they've used for more than 50 years. Sharika Griffith has the details.
Residents of Erie Hill, St. George making their demand clear. They want this padlocked fence gone. They say it's effectively blocked a path they've used for decades. Vicky Wilson says they've secured the services of a legal team comprising 3 attorneys at law, and they're prepared to take the fight all the way to the Caribbean Court of Justice.
We are going to fight them, even if we have to go to Trinidad. We are prepared to fight them to the bitter end to get this down.
Among Ms. Wilson's concerns is the fact the fence now prevents access to these Barbados Light and Power transformers.
At one time I had an issue where I had surges, and in order for them to fix the problem, they had to come down to this pole and fix one of these transformers. So if one of those transformers has a problem, I personally and all the people around me will be without electricity until they could find a way to fit a truck in there to fix that.
The now blocked path was also a shortcut for elderly residents like David Belgrave, who sometimes experiences pain and swelling in his knees.
So how do you manage to get around now with that extra kilometer that you have to walk?
I don't get around.
Another resident, Michael Byer, explains their safety concerns regarding the other road into the community, not least of which is a lack of sidewalks.
When the rain falls really bad, the situation is that it becomes flooded. And if you pass it, you got somebody standing there with some boy passing to give you a drop over the water, which is nonsense. It's ridiculous. And the other thing is that if somebody get attacked walking on that road around, they ain't got no whole says, you ain't got nobody to call for help. They ain't got nobody to call for the help because you got women that is done work late, all hours of the night, 12 o'clock. You got to walk that lonely road coming around there. You got children that coming from school that got to walk all around there. That's a very dangerous road.
Efforts to reach the owner or occupants of the property proved unsuccessful up to news time. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Local charity, the Red Foundation, has covered half of its journey across the island in an effort to raise thousands of dollars for those in need. Participants completed the second leg of the Walk the Talk initiative yesterday, which started at the Grantley Adams International Airport and concluded here at our CBC headquarters in the Pine. Patron of the foundation, Dr. the Honorable Stetson Red Plastic Bag Wiltshire, told, and well, he says they've now covered 27 kilometers of the 4-week walk, which spans St. Philip to St. Lucie.
I see people really enjoy themselves on the walk all the way down the highway, and our numbers have grown from last week, and I'm expecting next week now to be even bigger, and I want to really thank the people for coming up and supporting this effort. As the song in Bagong is saying, we need to be our brother's keeper, and I really thank them for coming up. But the walk was awesome, the sun wasn't too hot. I mean, it was only when we get to the little hill there that I started to feel a little bit of depression, but I'm happy with this turnout this morning, and hopefully we can grow from strength.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Red Foundation, Alvin Jemmett, is calling on more Barbadians to support the cause.
The overall goal is to raise 50,000. So if we divide that in four, we're looking for just around 13,000 a week. But the important thing is that we want to be able to help those in need. And so I'm making an appeal to Barbados and Barbadians to come out, give your support, buy a t-shirt, drop us some non-perishable items so we can make those packages for those who really, really need them at this time. Well, we have 2 collection points each week, at the beginning of the walk and at the end of the walk. But you can always contact any of us from the Red Foundation.
Yes, try and do what you can to support the Red Foundation and the cause to support those in need. Antigua and Barbuda plans to decide on whether to become a republic within the next 3 years, a move that would see Britain's new King Charles III removed as its head of state. Professor Chris Manjapra, professor of history specializing in colonialism and empire at Tufts University in the United States, says he hopes all 8 remaining Caribbean countries that are part of the Commonwealth will leave like how Barbados did.
Back in November 2021, I think we got a clue to that story when Barbados took the step to leave the Commonwealth and to declare its status as a republic. There are 8 remaining Commonwealth nations in the Caribbean. I would imagine that we could expect to see others leaving in the coming years, and I would certainly welcome that as a path towards truth and acknowledgement of the past. But, as we're having this thraldom internationally, really, we're experiencing it in Britain, but I'm here in the United States, we see it all over our media today, is a thraldom of concern and sorrow and sadness around the death of Queen Elizabeth II. I'm in many ways wondering, when do we get to talk about the death of the monarchy? And I think that, in fact, would be something to look forward to in this 21st century.
Professor Manjapra also contends with the passing of the Queen, saying there's a need for a conversation on the negatives of her legacy.
When we look at how decolonization ended, yes, it ended in the time in which Queen Elizabeth came to the throne it began in the 1950s when she came to the throne. We've been in a period of decolonization from the 1950s onwards, but during the same period, we've seen ongoing injustice. We've seen under the rule of Queen Elizabeth, we've seen the violence and the plunder and the massacres that took place in Malaya, in Yemen, in Aden, in Kenya, the Mau Mau uprising. We've seen underdevelopment that has been made systemic in places like the Caribbean and Africa and even South Asia. And, in my own research, I discovered that it took until 2015 for the British government to, in fact, stop paying its debt that it took out about 180 years ago for slave owner reparations. And this was being carried on again in the name of the Queen. So the past of colonialism continues to live on today. And partly it's because we continue to tell the story of the empire and not appreciate the pain and the suffering and the plunder of those who have been colonized by that empire. That's something that we need to make some space for, I think.
Now, as many people in the United Kingdom continue to mourn the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, there are some who are getting on with their lives and who are not getting involved too much in the wave of sorrow.
Seemingly without end, the floral tributes have spilled out from Buckingham Palace onto the gardens of Green Park. The crowds, unrelenting, snake their way along a one-way system that no one quite understands, so they just follow the people in front. Volunteers are pressed into action, fetching, carrying, removing plastic packaging. Loving messages remember a queen who was the nation's grandmother.
Anyone would like to grab some flowers? We've been here since about 6 this morning, just trying to clear the flowers from over near the palace. What we've found since we've been here is we've been completely overwhelmed. We've done 15 trucks so far and everyone's just coming in, giving us a hand. We just look at the people, they're picking everything up. They're litter picking, they're clearing everything up. It's absolutely fantastic. In the 20 or so years that I've been in horticulture, I've never seen anything like it.
It's almost like a kind of pilgrimage, isn't it? Thousands of people coming here, many with a genuine sense of grief, others to have a physical experience of history and to leave their mark. And here in this place it feels almost universal, like surely everyone must want to be here. But of course that's not the case. Elsewhere, life goes on largely undisturbed. Respectfully blacked out display windows at one of London's most famous stores serve only to hide the bustle of shoppers inside. A majority generally approve of the monarchy in Britain today, but much of that is down to the popularity of the Queen and her grandchildren. For younger generations, it is an institution with questionable relevance.
Personally, it doesn't affect me. I know that might sound a bit insensitive, but I understand the significance, but it doesn't have an impact on my life personally. And I think that's the general feeling with my friends.
I think it's good to have like a head of the country, have like a figure to look up to, but I just don't think that is relatable for a lot of people now.
God save the king. God save the king.
While the new king is proclaimed in places great and small across the country, many simply go about their business. King Charles has work to do to fill his mother's place in the nation's affection.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the president of the Scrap Iron Dealers Association, Alan Ferguson, is promising something big is coming. Speaking at their public meeting, he said the fight is not just for members in the scrap iron industry, but for all disenfranchised workers.
The battle now start!
President of the Trinidad and Tobago Scrap Iron Dealers Association, or TTCDA, Alan Ferguson, said persons are being mobilized in anticipation of the association's next steps in ensuring that not only are his members' voices heard, but the concerns of other organizations as well.
And Trinidad and Tobago, wait, organize yourself, organize your community, and we will come to rescue you from this injustice. Not for scrap iron alone, for different workers, for the police, for the prisoners, for the turnkeys, for the nurses, for the firemen, for all the different TSCT workers and workers in this country who've been being exploited by the companies and different organizations. We is coming out to help you all now.
Mr. Ferguson noted that the impact of the 6-month shutdown of the industry has had far-reaching consequences to other islands of CARICOM.
All the different small islands come to Trinidad every week to sell us the scrap, and then they go by these wholesale place and buy buy grocery stuff, buy different items and carry back to the islands and them.
A letter is expected to be written and delivered to the leaders of CARICOM in the coming weeks. In the meantime, Mr. Ferguson is appealing to members to stay strong because they are not giving up on their call for government to reopen the industry now.
Sporting news now. The Barbados Royals won their top-of-the-table clash with the Jamaica Tallawahs by 8 wickets yesterday to remain unbeaten in the 2022 Hero CPL. Playing at the Darren Sammy Stadium in St. Lucia, the Tallawahs, sent into bat by the Royals, scored 156 for 8 off their 20 overs. The captain, Rodman Powell, top-scored with 52, while Obed McCoy took 3 for 24. When the Royals batted, Quinton de Kock stroked 64 from 53 balls, and Corbin Bosch got 56 in their 157 for 2 in 19.5 overs. Here are the highlights. So the Royals have extended their lead with 10 points from 5 wins and will next play the Trinbago Knight Riders tomorrow night as the tournament heads over to TNT. Let's take a look at weather now. The temperature right now is 27.1 degrees Celsius. It's partly cloudy on the outside. It's feeling a whole lot warmer though. It was really warm last night. So it's feeling like 33 degrees Celsius right now, the apparent temperature. The relative humidity is 81%. The barometric pressure, 1012.0 millibars. And those winds are coming out of the east at 24 kilometers per hour. There will be a low tide this morning later on at 7 minutes to 11. The high tide will be late in the afternoon at 17 after 5. The seas are calm to moderate in open water. Swells are between 0.5 and 1 meter. Today in Barbados, it will be partly sunny with a few brief isolated light showers. And tonight, it will be clear with cloudy periods and a few brief scattered light to moderate showers. And here's a quick look at the international weather forecast. And that's it for this edition of the CBC Morning Report. I'm Shane Seeley. I'll see you at 7 with headline news. Up next is Pearson with Morning Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, morning, morning. Morning.
I say too, good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome today to Monday, the 12th of September, 2022. I am Pearson Bowen, welcoming you everywhere. Thank you so much for joining us on our streams on YouTube and also on Facebook. Now, coming up this morning, Monday, you'll get another chance to unscramble some letters. We'll have some fun with that. Also today, we'll be telling you about the Ministry of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs Advisory Committee on how to improve the lives of people with disabilities. They're having a series of town hall meetings, and we'll start that discussion with them this morning right here on Morning Barbados. The man behind Unpack It, remember we talked about that last week, Unpack It, creating that safe space for people with mental issues to be able to talk, to feel safe again. Well, it is back. He will talk to the man about his mission and his purpose. 5 keys to safer food. We'll share those keys with you, and our food technologist joins us in just a little while. We'll also be hearing more about creating that safe space and that remind you that church is a safe space. How is that possible, and what is going on in the Anglican Church as relates to that subject? Look out for that discussion in just a little bit as well. But let's get started this morning in our conversations on CARICOM. We're happy as always to be joined by Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency David Commichon. Ambassador Commichon, morning.
Good morning, Pearson. It's a pleasure to be here with you again.
I cannot wait to hear about what happened in Belize, because by the pictures alone, it says that quite a lot happened.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It was 16 engagements, actually, over a period of about three days. So it was really a packed agenda. Of course, it took me 2 days to get to Belize and 2 days to get back home. We have that problem with travel within our region. We had to overnight in Miami. Mm-hmm. But I went to Belize primarily to present my letters of credence, my credentials, to the Governor General of Belize, appointing me Barbados's non-resident ambassador to Belize. As I explained, I am expected not only to be Barbados's ambassador to CARICOM, but I'm also expected to be the non-resident High Commissioner of Barbados to virtually all of the CARICOM countries. But of course, I didn't just present my credentials. I took the opportunity to have a full engagement with Belize's government and wider civil society. So from the Governor General to the Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Education, Minister of Tourism, Minister responsible for constitutional and political reform, speaking to the students at the University of Belize, engaging with the Belizean media, engagement with the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism, and we can go on and on.
Yes.
Very packed agenda.
Now, I'm curious, therefore, in all of these meetings, what were you talking about? What were some of the discussion points?
Well, I started laying the foundation for the putting together of an agreement for collaboration, a special relationship between Barbados and Belize that will be anchored in a joint commission for cooperation between the two countries. Mm-hmm. So we started that conversation. And so we were looking at all of the possible areas of collaboration, from the blue economy to tourism, to agriculture, to educational exchanges, etc., etc. Now, Belize is a very important country. It's a very important CARICOM country. It is the only CARICOM country in Central America. So that in itself makes it significant. It is CARICOM's gateway to Central America. Mm-hmm. Belize is on the western perimeter of the Caribbean community. Barbados is on the eastern perimeter. So we are the two extremities of the Caribbean community. Barbados is the eastern border of the Caribbean Sea, Belize the western border. And Belize is I would say Belize is a very good partner with Barbados in taking on responsibility for constructing our Caribbean integration movement, our CSMA in particular. So we see Belize as an important CARICOM member helping us to build our integration movement, but we also see the advantages in having a strong bilateral relationship with Belize. So we have already started. For example, the two ministries with responsibility for the blue economy, they have already started to negotiate a memorandum of understanding as to how they're going to collaborate as guardians of the Caribbean Sea, a whole series of programs to see how they can share information, they can share best practices, they can work together. We can work together whether it's on dealing with coastal erosion, dealing with the effects of global warming. That Belize is it is not an island, but it is a low-lying continental area. So many of the concerns about global warming and sea rise that Barbados has as a small island state, Belize also has as a low-lying coastal continental state. But Belize is a tremendous country. It is actually 53.5 times the size of Barbados. You're talking a country of 876 square miles. It is a country of great diversity. So you're talking the second longest barrier reef in the world. You're talking about islands off the coast of Belize, one of which is as big as Barbados. You're talking rivers, you're talking rainforests, you are talking Mayan ruins. Belize was the location of a massive Mayan civilization, back in the day. So there are tremendous ancient cities that have been discovered under the rainforests of Belize. So it is a country, Pearson, that is being targeted. The Central Americans recognize the value of Belize. They are coming into Belize. The Chinese, there are many, many Chinese business people that are targeting Belize. And it occurs to me that we, people of the Caribbean community, governments and people, we need to take Belize much more seriously. We cannot simply, we need to make our presence more felt in Belize. There are opportunities in Belize for our business people. There are opportunities in Belize for young Barbadians and other young Caribbean people who are looking for a future. So Barbados is going to work on a very strong bilateral program with Belize.
I know while there as well, you also took the time to go to Battle Shield Park, pretty much similar to what we have here in Barbados. Talk to me a little bit about that experience there and what you learned and we can learn from it.
Battlefield Park. Battlefield Park is, in fact, the equivalent in Belize of our Golden Square Freedom Park. And I've been involved in commemorating the People's Rebellion of 1937. I've been directly involved year after year since 1989. It's 1988 actually. And every year as I engage in that commemoration, I always begin with a man called Antonio Soberanes Gomez, a Belizean, because the rebellion in 1937 in Barbados was just one of a virtual relay race of Caribbean rebellions. And it actually all started in Belize in 1934 with the leader, the Clement Payne of Belize, Antonio Soberanes. That's a picture there of his bus in Battlefield Park. So I was able to go to Belize. I engaged with government officials. I spoke to the students at the University of Belize, and I was able to speak about Antonio Soberanes. And it came across to me in Belize that he has not been as recognized and as honored as we have done with Clement Payne here in Barbados. And Battlefield Park, which was his stomping ground, just as Golden Square was the stomping ground for Clement Payne, has not been treated with the same, upliftment and dignity that we have treated Golden Square. So this is an area too that we are going to collaborate in. In fact, I was thanked in Belize. People thanked me for bringing to their attention this part of their heritage that they perhaps have not paid as much attention to as we have in Barbados. So, for example, I insisted that I be taken to Battlefield Park, that I told them that there were some Belizeans who didn't even know there was a bust of Antonio Soberanis in this park. So that's an aspect of our heritage that we share in common. And so we're going to work, Pearson. I've come back very energized. I have a full appreciation now of the value of Belize. Its value not only to CARICOM, but also to Barbados. I should also say, Pearson, there's a lot of ethnic diversity in Belize. Yes. So you are talking Mayan people, Mayan communities. You're talking the Garifuna. The Garifuna are the so-called Black Caribs that the British defeated in St. Vincent and sent into exile to Belize. You're talking people of African origin. You're talking mestizo people who came in from the Spanish-speaking parts of Central America. You're talking the traditional white settler Europeans and Asiatics. So it is a very, very diverse society. And it is intriguing to know that there are many Barbadian connections, because many Barbadians may not be aware, but the Garifuna people are really a combination of escaped African slaves from Barbados. When the slaves escaped the plantation in Barbados, there were no mountains or forests to run to in Barbados, so they had to get on a raft and head for St. Vincent. And it is mainly those escapees from the plantations in Barbados that commingled with the Kalinago or Caribs to produce the Black Caribs. So we have that connection that we don't even know about. Yes, and actually, for example, the person who composed the Belizean national anthem, Corporal Samuel Haynes, is actually the son of a Bajan, a Barbadian soldier who migrated to Belize. So I was telling I was giving them this historical data that they were not even conscious about, and making the point that that there are many historical linkages between Barbados and Belize.
And perhaps even unconsciously as Barbadians, now we know that there is that linkage, and we need to explore it even further. There's such a rich, because of the diversity of which you spoke, of culture. And part of what it is that you did too while there, you took some time to donate some books to the National Library Service there, which is important, because it's helping also to shape the consciousness of those, the conscience of those who are there as well. So that donation, how receptive were they to it? Because I know Papiamento is a part of how they talk and communicate as well. So being able now to turn the pages and read words about ourselves, how was that reception?
Yes, I mean, for me, this was important. As you would know, I am very much a literary person. I believe in the culture of books. So I was determined that I was going to Belize to present my credentials as High Commissioner, but I was determined that the Belizean people must know that Barbados is in the house, that the visit must make an impact on Belizean society. And so I donated many of my own books, but I also donated books written by Sir Hilary Beckles. For example, Beckles' History of Barbados, and Beckles' Britain's Black Debt. And yes, the books were extremely well received. What you saw there was a picture of me and Barbados's honorary consul to Belize, Mr. Arturo Vasquez, and I want to give kudos to Mr. Vasquez. He assisted tremendously in making this visit the success it was. And the director of Belize's National Library Services, she's the lady in the middle. And that's the donation. So I was very proud of that we were able to make that tangible contribution to Belizean society with that gift of books. I was also very proud that I was able to lecture, to present a talk to the students of the University of Belize, and that I was able to engage with the Belizean people in 2 radio and television appearances, including being able to take 1 or 2 questions, from the public. So all in all, it was a very, very meaningful visit that is setting the platform now for a very fulsome engagement between our 2 countries. I really want to press on the CARICOM Skills National Program.
Yes.
I think what is going to happen, between Barbados and Belize, in all likelihood, we are going to collaborate in areas such as technical and vocational training, bringing up our young people in terms of their acquisition of skills and certification. Certainly, I'm going to be encouraging Barbadian young people, get those skills, get qualified for that CARICOM Skills National program, and then look at Belize, explore Belize, look at Belize as a possible opportunity for work and career opportunities. Belize is the government of Belize is on the verge of giving an amnesty to some 40,000 people from Central America who have come into Belize as quote unquote illegal migrants. They're going to give them, they're going to regularize their stay. So 40,000. So we cannot sit back and allow people from Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador and these other countries to see the value of Belize, the potential of Belize, to take advantage of it, and we don't.
Yes.
So the visit has really awoken in me a better understanding of the potential that exists in Belize and the need for us to get a lot closer.
Well, we're going to get closer indeed over the weeks to come. Ambassador Coppershaw, I could sit and listen and talk to you forevermore. It's so fascinating, the work that you're doing in CARICOM as well. But thank you as always for joining us in our conversations on CARICOM. I know that people are far more enlightened and excited, just to use those 2 E words. And I'm hoping that they take opportunity to head to the Barbados Accreditation Council, make sure you have your skills certificate in place and grab hold of the opportunities now availed in Belize. Thank you so very much, sir, and I look forward to next week's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pearson.
You're very welcome. We're going to take a break here. We're coming back with more here on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're now 10 minutes to go to the hour of 7 o'clock. We introduced you earlier this year to the Anglican Church of Barbados Diocese, their new Mission Action Plan, which is all-encompassing, looking at all of their congregation, even the seniors. And so September being Senior Citizens Month, they're having, in a couple days, a panel discussion looking at the church as a safer place to worship. Joining us this morning to talk a little bit more about the initiative and when it is and what it is and so on is Dr. Adrian Lord, a friend to Mornin Barbados, as you know, but the chairman of the Anglican Diocese Health and Wellness Commission. Dr. Lord, good morning.
Good morning, Pearson.
Why do you think... Good to have you indeed. Why is it important to have this discussion, the church as a safer place to worship?
Well, we are still in the pandemic. We've been locked out and locked in and told to stay at home. But we thought that people were getting a little bit too comfortable in the home environment. And we decided that we need to encourage persons to get back out there, to get back into church. Church is not just the building, but we want people to have fellowship. We want you to return, regather, refresh, and rejoice with other persons. And I think that's what church is all about. And we thought that especially the elderly have been suffering even more so than others because people have gone back to work. People going back to school. They went back to all the fetes and to the beaches and to the supermarkets and everything else. But we have not gone back to church as we ought to. And if those places are safe, we think the church is even safer place to worship.
At the beginning of the pandemic, we were told, you are not to congregate in large numbers, so therefore the church paid a price from that particular messaging. And you're saying now the messaging has changed, and whereas that messaging has changed, the action, the behavior of the people have not changed commensurate with that messaging. So how can this panel discussion begin to reshape the way the mind has been configured now over the last 2 or so years to what you would like it to be?
Well, we're going to have experts in various areas to discuss this. People have become very comfortable at home, even those that can come out. They can now watch church services from their living rooms, from their studies, from their bathrooms, in the bedrooms, in the nighties, in the church clothes if they want to. But what we're going to do, we're going to have this panel discussion in person and virtually at the Church of Christ the King on Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock. We're going to have the Lord Bishop Michael Maxwell. He's going to be present. We have the president of the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, Dr. Linda Williams. We have a caregiver and literacy specialist, Dr. Imelda Charles Clark. She's going to give her perspective, and a social worker. I'll be the moderator. And what we're going to do, we're going to discuss the various aspects of what the church has done, what they can do in the future, what we're going to do to help get people back out to church, and how safe church is. In the UK, Church of England, I noticed there are certain things that they've put in place. There are people who don't feel comfortable going back out to church yet. So there are some churches which have had special places if you want to have the distancing, and if you want to sit together, you can sit together in different areas. Some of our churches might not be big enough to do that, but those are some of the ideas that we would put forward. We have the sanitizing, we mask wearing. We still have our protocols in place so that we want the place to be safe. Fortunately, the Anglican Church, we have not been troubled by outbreaks of COVID-19 during the lockdown and the high numbers of pandemic, and we want to maintain it because the elderly are the people who are suffering more from the COVID-19 than even the younger ones.
And so this panel discussion affords all who come and who join online as well the opportunity to hear from the experts about how safe it truly is now to be able to step back out in some degree of numbers, and how to be able to assure those who are seniors to consider returning to church. And I like the fact you have a linguist within there as well, because I'm curious as to why and how that linguist can help to shape the messaging so that it penetrates the mind.
Yeah, actually she's a literary specialist, but she's going to add a certain perspective in this whole thing because she's also a caregiver. So she's going to let us know how it is as a caregiver, getting back out to church when she has to look after other family members, how it is, how comfortable it is, or how difficult it is, and how the lack of social interaction, because social interaction is being affected. And even the younger persons, we have a lot of youth groups in the church, and they're not coming out as they should. The Sunday schools, We've had the Sunday schools online. We've had some person-to-person. But the social aspect of church needs to be encouraged. And therefore, that is how we're going to look at that aspect. We look at the medical aspect, we look at the religious aspect, and what the church, the Anglican church, and not only the Anglican church, but churches need to do in order to get back out there.
And so the Anglican Church is having this on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Church of Christ the King in Rotundo, and it's also on Zoom. Those details we will post on our social media platform, and the information is right there on your screen. If you're like me, you're good at remembering numbers, note it down. If you're not like me, others, write it down. That's the ID number and then the passcode. Yes, please.
What we're going to do too is also going to be streamed on YouTube. So the Church of Christ the King YouTube link, you just type in Church of Christ the King and you got it there. And you can interact with the panel either on Zoom or the YouTube, and we'll be ready and willing and able to answer any questions and any suggestions that people may have, because it's all part of the map, the mission action plan of the Anglican Diocese. We have the vision and mission, and we want to get back out there and get people out there to fellowship. Because we need to encourage that. That is what we know as Bajans church is all about.
Yeah, and while it's an initiative of the Anglican Diocese of Barbados, it is open to every denomination on Barbados as well. So don't think for a second that this information is only for Anglicans. This is information for anyone. It's Senior Citizens Month, and so seniors, the entire family really. The senior is just one of the members of a family. So at whatever age, you're encouraged to join on Wednesday at 7 p.m. You can go to the YouTube page of the Church of Christ the King, or you can go on the Zoom link that we just shared with you. We assure you again. Or you can come in person to the Church of Christ the King in Rotundo and engage, get to know more about how the church is truly a safer place to worship. Because I think, Dr. Lord, and especially as the chairman of the Anglican Diocese Health and Wellness Commission, there's a lot you would have learned, and out of that learning, you're now able to put in place to ensure that those people can feel confident again to return. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. For us to learn, we have learned a lot for other people to learn about what's going on post-pandemic, during the pandemic. And also for Senior Citizens Month, what we're doing, the Anglican Church is doing the last Sunday of the month, which is the 25th. We're encouraging the senior citizens to come back out. We're encouraging each church to find some means of interacting with the senior citizens. We're going to either bring them to church or go and visit them after church, because we have not been as nice, as cooperative as we should have been interacting, because there's no social interaction. You had the 6 feet distancing and then 3 feet distancing. Now there's no distancing. But we need to get the older people back, because they're being alone and lonely and left out, because they don't have the devices necessarily to interact virtually, and therefore, and some of them may not understand what really has been going on. So we need to get them back out. But on Wednesday evening, we're going to discuss why the church is a safer place to worship, and why it's a safer place for the young, the old, and the middle-aged.
Indeed so. So folks, we commend it to you. Do join on Wednesday. Dr. Lord, thank you so much for joining us. I wish much success with you and your team on this subject area, and particularly in this month. And I hope that on the 25th, when all are encouraged to come back out in numbers and to bring along the seniors as well, that they do follow and that they follow up with it. And to hear more too, a little later on at some point in time, about what else your committee is doing to help those in the Anglican Church indeed manage health in general. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Dr. Adrian Lord, the chairman of the Anglican Diocese Health and Wellness Commission, reminding you of this upcoming Wednesday's Safer Church Place to Worship online panel discussion. It's on YouTube, on Zoom, and in person at the Church of Christ the King, Rotundo. We're taking a break here. We're coming back with the news in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
All right, it's time for us to get the latest news update. For that, we turn once again to that man, Shane Seeley.
Thank you, Pearson. Here's your 7 a.m. your headline news for this morning. The Education Minister, Kay McConney, is quelling any fears parents may have about potential COVID-19 spikes in schools once full face-to-face instruction returns next Monday, September the 19th. Responding to queries at a news conference on Back to School over the weekend, Minister McConney says her ministry continues to rely on the expertise of the Ministry of Health and Wellness as its biggest partner in its fight against the virus. The minister notes once that consultation has taken place, they would then engage other key educational partners on the way forward.
One of the things that we have reiterated is that the protocols are what they are now. However, they're constantly being monitored, we're constantly reevaluating, and we are very open to reviewing. Our first interest is ensuring that we create the right kind of environment for learning and for instruction. And in the event that we believe that that is threatened significantly and that the ability of our students to be able to learn in a safe environment is in fact something that's being compromised, we will take the necessary decisions.
Meanwhile, we hear that Barbados has recorded 25 new cases of COVID-19, and this is out of 302 tests conducted by the Best dos Santos Public Health Laboratory. Of that number, there were 4 people under the age of 18 and 21 persons 18 years and older. There are now 51 people in isolation facilities and 458 people in home isolation. No deaths were recorded, and the number of people who died from the viral illness remains at 556. Under the national vaccination program for the virus, the total number of people with at least one dose is 163,429. The total number of people who are fully vaccinated is 158,487. The minister in the Ministry of Finance and Investment, Ryan Strawn, says learning to use underutilized special drawing rights at the International Monetary Fund to facilitate more innovative guarantees through development banks can be extended to partnerships Barbados has with other countries. Minister Strawn made the suggestion this morning as he addressed the UNCTAD South Expo in Thailand. Well, the objective of the Thematic Solution Forum is to provide an opportunity for governments, international organizations, and academia to reflect and debate on the role of South economic integration in the post-COVID recovery of developing countries. Minister Strawn, for his part, says Barbados is actively working in this area as he is scheduled to lead debate in Parliament tomorrow for Barbados to facilitate the execution of a debt-to-nature swap.
This is particularly important after the pandemic, where vulnerable travel-dependent countries like Barbados are now required to pursue innovative financing options. The Debt for Nature swap is supported by a counter-guarantee agreement with the Inter-American Development Bank and the Nature Conservancy. This allows us to divert existing debt service in order to facilitate enhanced marine conservation and other environmental commitments. In a similar vein, we are currently having discussions with countries within our hemisphere to determine how to use underutilized special drawing rights at the International Monetary Fund to facilitate more innovative guarantees through regional development banks. We believe that this tool could be extended on a South-South basis. Since coming to office in May 2018, Barbados has been a strong advocate for global cooperation. The predominantly nationalist response by developed nations during the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated to all the need for stronger South-South partnerships.
And finally in sports, the Barbados Royals won their top-of-the-table clash with the Jamaica Tallawahs by 8 wickets yesterday to remain unbeaten in the 2022 Heroes CPL. Playing at the Darren Sammy Stadium in St. Lucia, the Tallawahs were sent into bat by the Royals. They scored 156 for 8 off their 20 overs. The captain, Rovman Powell, top scored with 52, while Obed McCoy took 3 for 24. Now, when the Royals batted, Quinton de Kock stroked a 64 from 53 balls, and Corbin Bosch got 56 in their reply of 157 for 2 in 19.5 overs. And that's our headline news for this Monday morning. I'm Shane Seeley. It's back over to you, Pearson.
Shane, thank you. We're 7 minutes after 7 o'clock. We'll take a break here, and we're back with Morning Barbados in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Nine minutes after 7 o'clock, everything you just saw there looks so delicious, doesn't it all? Well, we want to look now at those 5 keys to safer food, and joining us to help us understand those keys and what they are is Carolyn Pilgrim, who's our food technologist. Carolyn, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Is yours in the supermarket?
Yes.
I should have followed you to see where you... to see where you were going, to see if you were actually practicing everything you want to preach at me this morning.
I do. You could have. You would have seen that, definitely.
Right. So let's talk about these 5 keys to safer food. Why were they developed and designed in the first place? And then you go through them one by one for me.
Okay, so the WHO developed, well, they initially developed, 10 golden rules for safe food preparation for food handlers, because obviously, food handlers are handling food that consumers are going to eat. So they want to make sure they're handling food correctly, but they very quickly realized that they needed to make it simpler and easier to remember and give more information on why the suggestions were made. So they trimmed them down to the 5 keys to safer food, but they're completely applicable to consumers because, of course, consumers prepare food for their families, and they also, could do a church potluck or a work potluck, and it would also affect the wider community. So it's totally applicable.
So we would think oftentimes when I head into the kitchen, whatever I do in here with my people around me, we all right, because we have the same kind of quote-unquote viruses and germs. We get on well together. And so we can let sometimes our preparation standards slip and we assume certain things. And you're saying, no. Even in an environment like that, you still have to be very mindful of some of those 5 keys to safer food. So let's break it down one by one. Now, key number 1, what is it?
Keep clean. And I would have mentioned this when I was here the last time. You need to make sure you wash your hands very often before, during, and after food preparation. When you touch the garbage, if you touch raw meats or eggs, always make sure you wash your hands, and also keep surfaces clean, keep the utensils and all those things clean, which will play into the second key, which is to separate wrong.
Don't go there yet. I'm breaking this down one by one. So in keeping clean, you said to me to wash my hands. Let's put our graphic back up if you can. Let's just bring it up again so people can get it. Wash your hands before handling food, and also wash your hands often during food preparation. I should wash my hands after going to the toilet, duh. I should wash and sanitize all surfaces and equipment used for food preparation, and I should protect kitchen areas and food from insects, pests, and other animals. Now, oftentimes in that last one, protect kitchen areas from food, insects, and we tend to want to spray. You know what I'm talking about, Carolyn?
Yes,
and that oftentimes should raise a red flag for us, shouldn't it?
It should, because, you know, those insecticides are not meant to be eaten. You know, they're chemical hazards. So you don't want to be spraying insecticide, you know, around the food preparation areas. But you do want to keep the pests out, for sure.
When you talk about washing hands often, though, is it under running water, or should I have a bowl? Because you don't want to waste water. And do I want to be having a bowl and I'm constantly dipping my hands in the same water over and over again?
Please don't. Please don't. Running water. Thankfully, we have a very good quality running water in Barbados. So definitely use running water, because, you know, if you wash in a bowl and keep using that same water, obviously that water is becoming contaminated. So after you wash repeatedly, your hands are no longer clean. They're now contaminated.
And I'm glad you said it, because I wanted people to hear that. Is it better warm water or regular room temperature water?
I would say hot water, warm water, hot water. Yeah.
Okay, as much as the hand can bear.
Can bear, can tolerate, yes.
All right. Especially when you're dealing with meats and fish and the like.
Oh, yes, definitely, definitely, definitely. They can naturally have, you know, all kinds of microorganisms, and you want to make sure that you remove those organisms from your hands before you move on to preparing something else.
So what's the best
thing? And to clean the utensils and stuff.
Coming to the cleaning now. What's the best thing to use when I'm cleaning the surfaces of my preparation area or the utensils? Just water, because we just rinse it off and move on. Or we can use our dishwashing liquids and so forth. And is every dishwashing liquid the same?
Well, you can use hot soapy water. Hot soapy water is fine. You can also use disinfectants, but you need to make sure that they're food grade. Yes, you can, but they need to be food grade. They need to be food grade disinfectants. You can use like bleach, you know, but you need to follow the manufacturer's instructions to make sure you dilute it correctly, because you don't want any disinfectants to become chemical hazards then in the food that you are preparing.
All right. And having done that, having washed and everything else, do I wipe the surface dry, or do I just leave it there and I carry on with my next stage of preparation?
I mean, you can wipe it dry, or you can let it air dry if, you know, you have a little bit of time, but it's best, you know, to wipe it down after. Yes.
Gotcha, girl. You give me real hard work in the kitchen, I'm telling you, but it is important.
Not really. Not
it's
really.
important to do so.
It becomes like second nature. If you do it enough, it will become second nature.
Yeah. Perhaps that's the key to me. Do it enough. Do it enough.
Yes.
So keep clean. Keep the hands clean. Keep the surfaces clean. Keep the utensils clean. All of those things. Keep clean. Key number 2, you say, is to separate raw and cooked food.
Definitely.
Explain that one.
So you don't want to, you know, you're preparing chicken. Like the last time I was here, I was speaking about that as well. If I'm preparing raw chicken, I will do that first. I'll clean everything down very, very well. And one thing I should mention, disinfectants and stuff will not work well as they should in the presence of debris. So you need to clean down. If you're using a disinfectant, clean down everything with hot soapy water and then apply the disinfectant, right? But if I'm preparing raw meat, I'll prepare my raw meat and I'll make sure I'll wash, clean, and disinfect everything, and then I will go and prepare like a raw salad or another food, because I want to prevent any germs from the raw meat contaminating the next food I'm preparing, especially something like a salad that's going to be eaten raw. Okay, so those juices from the raw meat are laden with pathogens, so you want to make sure that you're not contaminating. And it also applies, as you probably will go on and say, like even in the supermarket, you know, when you're shopping and those things, you need to separate those raw foods from the other foods that are ready to eat. Because in the supermarket, for example, I see too often people have the minced meat sitting on top of cheese, or right on top of their bread, you know, and those are things you're going to just go home, just unwrap, cut, and eat. And the contamination from your hand, from handling the cheese that's contaminated with the juices from the chicken, you know, you're putting that directly into your mouth. So it's a definite risk.
Yeah, we're rethinking a lot of things, because you just want trolley space. You just drop it all in. When you get there, you'll sort it out at the cashier. That's what we oftentimes think. So you want us to, as we're shopping, to think very carefully of how we mix raw and cooked foods, how we mix those kinds of things that we're going to eat with those other things that require a little bit more preparation. So separate the raw and the cooked food. Of course, if you have a large enough surface and enough space in your kitchen area, that space is for that, this other space is for this other thing as well. That's another way to speed up the process, I
Yes.
suppose. All right.
Definitely.
Then key number 3, you say, is to cook thoroughly. Not everything
Oh, boy.
requires... Now listen, there are some people who like things medium rare, sometimes close to raw. You know what I'm talking about. You shake your head. Talk to
Oh
me.
boy. I mean, as a food technologist, I will have things well done. But yes, people do have, for example, steaks. They have steaks, rare or medium rare. And the thing with a steak is, with a steak, the bacteria, the pathogens we're concerned with, they're on the outside of the steak, okay, not on the inside of the steak. So generally, if you sear all the sides, you're killing the bacteria on the steak, and you should be okay. The problem comes when some steaks are tenderized using needles. So they use hundreds of needles that pierce the meat very, very rapidly. And what that, of course, is doing now is transferring the bacteria that would have just been on the outside to the inside. So then if you go and you just sear it on all sides, you don't cook it properly, completely, well done, then there's a definite risk. So it depends on the kind of meat you're using. It depends on how it was processed and stuff like that. So you need to, read your labels when you go shopping. And if you're in doubt, always have it well done.
You say 70 degrees Celsius. Is that the acceptable temperature at which we could cook food thoroughly?
Yeah, you can hold it. You can hold it after cooking.
Okay. So cook food
so
thoroughly.
hot holding.
Yeah, you're right. I'm touching it at all. Cook food thoroughly, especially meat, poultry, eggs, and seafood. Bring foods like soups and stews to boiling to make sure that they have reached 70 degrees Celsius. For meat and poultry, make sure that juices are clear, not pink. Ideally, use a thermometer and reheat cooked food thoroughly. So in cooking your meats and so forth, if you slice it just a little bit, you see a little bit of that pinky blood beginning to flow, then put it back in.
It's
Let it
not
finish.
done. Put that thing back in. Yes.
Yeah.
And for birds, you can cut in the thickest part, down by the thigh, and you can see if those juices are, because you want to have the internal temperature. It's not just the temperature; it's the internal temperature. So if down by the thigh leg area, if that's cooked, you're pretty sure that the rest of it is probably okay. But look for those juices. Don't use anything with pink or red juices.
I will not do that, Carolyn. You better believe it. You're preaching to the initiated here. And the next key you say is to keep food at safe temperatures. How do we determine the safe temperature for food?
Well, ideally, you need to use a food thermometer, but the average consumer is not going to have a food thermometer. So, like for food handlers, food businesses, they should have food thermometers for sure. So you want to keep food out of the temperature danger zone, which is 5 to 60 degrees. So if between 5 and 60 degrees, bacteria can multiply exponentially to very undesirable numbers. So a good way of remembering it is to keep hot food hot and keep cold food cold. So salads should be cold. So they should always be kept, in the refrigerator. Well, a refrigerator that is holding the right temperature, you keep them in the refrigerator. And then things that should be kept hot, like your rice, your stews, your soups, you keep those definitely above like 63 degrees.
If I'm going to a picnic and I've cooked at home, I don't have anything to keep it warm while I'm making my way to my destination.
Well, you can keep it in a thermos, in something that keeps it hot for as long as possible. But I advise people, thermometers aren't that expensive. You can just buy a thermometer and take it with you. But for example, for the cold things, you can put them into a cooler with ice to keep them cold. And for the hot things, you can keep them in a hot environment. Thermos or anything, I can keep it hot.
You know what I don't like? When you have a stew and it's been kept so cold I call it, what do I call it? That white thing that begins to form on top. You know what I mean?
Yes,
or that doesn't happen. Or does it happen to you? Yes. That oily.
No, it doesn't happen to me. But normally, if you put gravy into the fridge, for example, we take it out the next day or in a couple of hours, the fat will start. Is the word congeal? I'm not even sure.
Yes.
But the fat will start to separate and it will harden. Yes. If you see that on food that is being served to you, it's definitely not being kept hot enough.
But I can warm it up and it's good to go again, isn't it?
You can warm it up. Yes, you can warm it up.
Right.
But if it's been held not for over 2 hours though. Because if you have cooked food, you're not supposed to keep them at room temperature for over 2 hours, because cooking will kill the regular pathogens that we're concerned with. But there are some bacteria that produce things called spores, getting a bit technical here, but those spores can actually survive the cooking process. So if you cook it and they survive, then when you hold it outside of within the danger zone, they're allowed then to germinate and start reproducing again, and they can produce toxins, and those toxins will be what make you sick.
So it's best to keep hot foods hot, cold foods cold.
Cold foods cold.
All right, I got that.
Always a good rule. Yes.
I got that rule. And then key number 5 is say here, use safe water and raw materials. What do you mean here?
Okay, so I think for the WHO, obviously this is a World Health Organization. So obviously there's some areas of the world where, clean water is not, readily available. Some people, they cook and they bathe and they wash and, everything from the same body of water. So in those areas, that's like they would say, use safe water or make it safe. But in our area, it may not be as applicable. Like our water is very good quality, but you still need obviously to be careful, because if your water is going into the food you're preparing and the water is contaminated, then you have a definite problem. It's contaminating everything that you're using. And similarly with raw materials, a lot of the calls that I report on my page, a lot of times it comes down to a raw material that was contaminated, and then the manufacturer puts that raw material into their product, and then they have to recall the entire product. So you really need to make sure that your products are very wholesome, they're not expired, they're the best quality before you put them into your product, so that you avoid any problems down the road.
Manufacturers, chicken processors, and the like, all of you need to pay very close attention to these 5 keys to safer health indeed. And so you said to us just now on my page, what's the page, so that folks watching this morning can go and consume even more of what you're offering?
Yes, my page is Spark Food Safety 246 on Instagram.
There it is on your screen.
246 on Instagram.
Yeah, there she is. Spark Food Safety 246 is on Instagram. SPARK Food Safety 246 on Instagram, and you can interact with Carolyn Pilgrim. That's her name. She's a food technologist, and she can share with you even further on these 5 keys to safer food and much more as a food technologist. What a big word, but it means a lot, and it can make a difference with your good health. Thank you so much, Carolyn, and good to see you this Monday morning, and I wish you all the best.
Good to see you too. Yes, have a great day. Thank you so much.
Indeed, thank you very much indeed. Saw her in the supermarket on Saturday, and I'm like, she said, I'm going to be with you on Monday morning. I'm like, okay, I haven't seen the running order yet, but okay. And here it is, we met this morning indeed. Carolyn is indeed a wonderful person. We'll take a break here. We're coming back in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
25 minutes now after 7 o'clock. The last time we were together, we didn't get a chance to talk a real lot, but he has so much more to tell. His name is David Johnson. He's the founder and president of Let's Unpack It. David, good morning to you.
Morning, Pearson.
Good to see you yet again. Now, let's backtrack for just a moment so we bring people up to scratch. What is Unpack It?
So Let's Unpack It is an organization that I founded back in January 2020, and our mission is really to empower Caribbean youth to make mental health their reality. And so what we've been doing in the online space is to really engage young people where they're at, help them to discuss some of the challenges that they're experiencing, and really provide a safe space for them to unpack mental health.
Why are you, David Johnson, the one leading this?
I get that question so often, Pearson. And when I first started it, this is not what I imagined. I'll be very frank about that. It was really just that online safe space, because on my social media, I was creating positive content. One day I realized that, people were having some difficulties dealing with stress. And so I wanted to create a outlet where people can talk about that. Of course, that evolved over the last 2 years, because of the COVID-19 pandemic in particular, and there being a greater need to really talk about mental health. And so what we've actually evolved into right now is really an advocacy group, and we're taking the lead really to talk about this issue in a more public sense and really get the awareness out there that mental health really is a priority, and we need to take action now to mitigate some of these mental health challenges that particularly young people are facing. And so that's why I'm taking the lead on this.
But it's not a pity party, and that's the whole point I want to make. It's not a place where people come together just to fret and to say, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me. It's also a place where encouragement, I suppose, is also received.
Yeah, most definitely. Of course, on our social media, we take great pleasure in sharing a lot of content that inspires people, daily affirmations, quotes that can help people through the day, but also practical steps that young people can take to improve their mental wellness, and also encourage those within their spheres to do so as well.
Now, David, oftentimes you would think, all right, so you all can come together as young people, you can have your sharing. But who in there is the professional? You're just searching through. Who in there is the one that can lead them out of this state? What do you say?
Right. So on our executive team, we have those who would have studied psychology and who are going on into careers to be psychologists. I've also been studying medicine for the past 3 years. I'm in my final year of medical school at the moment. And so there is that background there. Of course, we do a lot of partnerships with registered psychologists, with agencies in Barbados and across the Eastern Caribbean with an interest in mental health. We've gone as far as to partner with the Division of Youth Affairs and the United Nations as well. So what we're really aiming for as well is an impact on policy, not just giving people tips that they can use, but also to make their lives better in a general sense.
As a medical student, here it is now, this is all going to be a part of what you eventually have to confront once you're accredited anyhow. The whole management of body, mind and spirit. And so the management of the mind is going to be a critical part of how you deliver medicine. What do you see, what do you hear when people start to let's unpack it that caused you concern?
Well, let me backtrack a little bit and let everybody know that fundamentally, when we talk about health, we have to change our language and we need to be talking about holistic health. No longer can we extricate mental health from the idea of health. And so I just want to remind everyone that just like you have height, you have mental health. Just like you have physical health, you have mental health. And so let's just set the record straight there. What we're trying to do is to prevent people from being in that position where they're in deteriorating mental health. And so what we want to keep people in that position of average, maintaining good mental health, or thriving really with their mental health. In terms of what concerns me, Pearson, obviously because we are a youth-centered, youth-focused advocacy group, what concerns me particularly for young people is that they haven't traditionally had that safe space to speak up about their mental health. And so what that means is that there are a lot of young people who are struggling all alone, even the ones who are supposed to be there for them, their parents, their loved ones, sometimes because of cultural norms, they actually invalidate the concerns that young people are facing when it comes to their mental health. And so what we're seeing is that young people either do not have the financial means because they're dependent on someone who doesn't understand that they have a problem to reach out and get help, but also that young people are really struggling. And so we can look at a number of issues, whether that is frank mental health challenges in the form of anxiety, depression, and stress, which can come from a variety of factors. They're also dealing with the changing climate. We have a very uncertain future right now.
Yes.
And to be frank with you, when we are faced with a crippling world, Pearson, where we're uncertain about our jobs in the future, where we're uncertain about our financial security, where we're uncertain about what the climate will be like in the next 10 years. These are legitimate concerns that young people are facing. And now, as the school term is about to start, we're having a lot of conversations about crime and violence in our schools. And so for me, when I hear this narrative that young people don't pay bills so they don't have problems, it scares me, because it forces young people into a position where they feel excluded from the conversation, where it feels as though their health does not matter. And it also makes them feel as though, what they're feeling on the inside is not legitimate. And if they don't feel as though that is valid, then naturally, they're not going to reach out for help.
You just went exactly where I wanted to go. I was waiting for your full stop. Because oftentimes an adult will look at the child and say, what are you worrying about? You don't have to pay bills. Right. What are you stressing about? You're a child. You should never have the kind of pressure that I, the adult, would have. But we, the adults, did not take the time to recognize that they have their own challenges, as real as they possibly are, for them to manage. And so how do we begin to create the space where we all have time to listen? And I know Let's Unpack It is one space, but you're looking to agitate for policy change that hopefully will permeate through society and create behavioral change. But how do we begin now, from your own experience, to make it possible so that we all listen to each other and respect how each other feels?
I'll be honest with you, Pearson, I have been quite encouraged over these last 2 years by the response I've been getting from young people, as well as people who are in their spheres. But of course, there's a lot more work to be done. In terms of our proposal on how we take action, we have about 7 points that we want to see taken. And number one is education. I think, to be frank with you, people do not empathize with the idea of mental health because they frankly don't understand it. And so what we need to do is to increase the level of awareness. Of course, we've been doing this. Of course, there are a number of youth organizations in Barbados and across the Eastern Caribbean that are doing this. What we need now is to be able to penetrate the areas where people spend most of their time. So whether that is looking at revamping our curriculum in our schools, I'm thinking particularly about the HFLE program, which unfortunately has taken a backseat in most of our secondary schools because it's just viewed as a free session. We can't do that. We need at least a 30-page manual or something on mental health that can practically help teachers, can help students to manage the challenges that they're facing there. We also need to penetrate the workplace. I commend the government for implementing or looking to implement this National Workplace Wellness Strategy, which I have heard has a particular mental health element, and I'm looking forward to seeing that implemented and the benefits we can have there. But more than that, we need concrete action. We would have known that last week we celebrated, or marked rather, World Suicide Prevention Week. And so what I would like to see, in addition to a rolling out of a comprehensive national mental health policy, is a standalone suicide prevention strategy. And so that fits into our element of mitigation. And that mitigation will look like, yes, these kind of policies being implemented, these kind of strategies being implemented, but also expanding the number of counselors, qualified counselors and psychologists at our schools, at our places of work. We also want to see expanded access given to all. The reality is that if I have 3 children in my household and I have to decide between putting food on my table and spending money to afford therapy, I'm going to choose food because that's the necessity. And so what we need to do is to not put people in that position where they have to choose. And so I want to see expanded funding as well. And of course, a critical element must be to investigate. If we don't know what are the root causes, what are the root situations in which people find themselves that, when we see them, they're at the extreme end of the mental health spectrum, then we're not going to know how to take action, how to assess if our strategies are working. And so I think, Pearson, if we're serious about this, we need to bring all the stakeholders together. And so that's what Let's Unpack is going to be doing in the next couple of months in terms of our immediate steps. We want to have more conversations with stakeholders. We want to be talking to guidance counselors. We want to talk to the teachers. We want to talk to parents. We want to talk to young people and see, okay, what are their concerns? What are their needs, and what are their recommendations to address this issue? And if we don't have this conversation, Pearson, I'm scared about the future, because if right now we live in a world where 700,000 people per year die by suicide, that's tragic. If we don't take that as a signal to act, as a signal to do more as in terms of prevention, then I'm scared that we're only going to end up in a worse situation.
Yeah, when you stop to think about it, first of all, I'm so enthused by your passion, you can't begin to imagine. I feel like joining you guys now. But we recognize physical pain. You either cry, you're cringing, you're all balled up, something. And so we understand that language. We don't quite yet understand the language of mental and emotional pain. And it's to be able through Let's Unpack It, to be able to design and craft that so that we can see it begins to unfold itself before us, so we can now know what to do and how to respond to it. Such a conversation to continue, David, and you know we shall
Most
continue
definitely.
to do so. You say there are projects that you guys are working on to roll out more and more, so stay in touch so that we can keep people in touch with the work of Let's Unpack It. Again, we've been sharing with folks just now some visuals of the website and the space they can come. So tell us where to go so that we can engage more with Let's Unpack It.
All socials, Pearson, Let's Unpack It Co. Let's Unpack It with the CO at the end. The CO stands for community. So all socials, and you can also find us online, www.letsunpackitco.com.
There you go, folks. It's right down your screen. Let's Unpack It CO. And that's on social, right across all social media platforms, and it ends with the .com if you're going on the website. Thank you so much, David Johnson. Such an inspiring experience with you indeed, and I can't wait to share even more with you a little later on. But thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Pearson.
Indeed, you're very welcome. David Johnson, who is the founder and president of Let's Unpack It, looking at creating that space to discuss mental health and to agitate for policy change to assist those with mental health. We didn't even get to talk about people with disabilities. We're going to talk about that coming up in just a little bit. Stay with us. Back with more in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
21 minutes now to go to 8 o'clock. Time for you and me to have some fun. You ready for this one? You ready? Time for us to unscramble some letters. And it's also time for you to give me a call on 228-5562 or 228-5563. As I always say to you, unscramble the letters. Tell me the word you make and then use it in a sentence. Can't wait to hear how creative or intelligent you truly are. 228-5562, 228-5563. Work this one out. Easy so. Easy, easy, easy. This is an easy one to start you going this morning. Work this one out. Unscramble. There's a two words. Two words. Unscramble the letters to both words and tell me what you see. And then use it in a sentence. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Call me now and let me know what words you see when you unscramble the letters that you also see in front of you right now on your TV screen. Those letters form two words, and let's see what you do. Good morning. Hello.
Pleasant and wonderful and magnificent Monday morning to you, Bruce.
Well, you're sweet enough and syrupy on a Monday morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine. And you?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. You know what I usually ask, right? First name and the parish you're watching from.
Sonia, St. Michael.
I know it's you, Sonia, from St. Michael. Oh, you had a good weekend, Sony?
I had a restful and peaceful weekend.
Oh, that's nice. So you didn't get out to do much at all, did you?
No, but this week it can be kind of hectic.
Well, that for you. That's right, because you wasted too much time lying down this weekend.
But
So,
I'm
Sonia,
recovering from an injury, so
I know you're still working on it. Yes, that's all right. So tell me the words you see on your screen. What are they?
Sea bath.
And
Something
use it
I
in.
planned to get the longest time and ain't get there yet.
So that's your sentence.
Yes.
All right,
No,
boss.
my sentence would be, it's good to have a sea bath down at the hot pot.
Okay. Well done, Sonia. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, okay?
You too and all the staff at CBC.
On their behalf, I say thank you. Thank you so much. She's absolutely right. Sea bath is it. That's the first set of words. We got another one for you. Another one for you. So what shall the new word be? It's right there. It's right there in front of you right now. So take a look, and unscramble those letters. Tell me the words. Again, there are two words on your screen. Tell me the two words you can make when you unscramble these letters, and of course, then you will use the words you've discovered in a sentence for me. So 228-5562 or 228-5563. What words can you make when you unscramble the letters that are on your screen at the moment? Yes. Talk to me now. Come on, talk to me. 228-5562 or 228-5563. We've had St. Michael, St. George, St. James, St. John, St. Andrew, St. Peter, St. Joseph. Come on, y'all. Talk to me. 228-5562 or 228-5563. There are two words on the screen, all scrambled, and I'd like to hear them being unscrambled. Good morning. Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, how do you do?
Pardon?
How do you do?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you too for asking. And what's your first name? What parish are you watching us from?
Tanya, St. Michael.
Tanya of St. Michael. Tanya, what words do you see on your screen at the moment?
Navel string.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. If that is the words, those are the words you see, use them in a sentence. Let me hear.
My navel string buried right here.
That's the only navel string sentence you know? Everybody uses that same sentence when they say navel string. My navel string buried right here. Have you ever cut a navel string?
No, I haven't.
You've never done it?
No.
Would you like to?
Sure, why not?
Oh, you're curious. Do you know that there are no, you can't feel it at all? The person can't feel it. Did you know that? The baby wouldn't?
Yeah, I do know that.
Oh, well, you're smart, girl. All right, Tanya, thank you so much. You're absolutely right. It's navel string. Have a good day, okay?
Thank you, you too.
All right. Or as we would have said in full old days, navel string. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Look at this one. We have a new word. We have a new set of words. Two more words on your screen. Come. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Figure this one out. Again, these words are easy. They're so easy. It is unbelievable. Even I, and I'm not the smartest bulb in the back, but even I can figure it out. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Some of you have the uncanny gift. My production crew are on the ball this morning. My production crew is so funny. But anyway, some of you have the uncanny gift of looking at it and getting it immediately. Wow, I commend you on that. That's a gift. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Call me now. Tell me the words you see on your screen. And of course, I'd like to hear you use them in a sentence. Don't make this one seem as if it's so difficult, because it's as easy as the previous words you saw. Really, really easy. 228-5562 or 228-5563. We've had two St. Michaels. Can we have someone from somewhere else? Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, and how are you?
Oh, I'm well, thank you for asking. What's your first name and where are you watching from?
Lucy from St. Andrew.
This is Lucy? Bordens in St. Andrew, Lucy indeed. So Lucy, what words do you see on your screen?
Lightning cold.
Lightning cold?
Yeah.
Use it in a sentence. Let me hear you.
I want to go outside and catch no lightning cold.
You just had a baby? You just had a baby?
Yeah.
Do you remember where that term came from? Why people would actually say that I don't want to go outside to get a lightning cold?
I really don't know.
You don't know? Man, you're making sport. But listen, it's actually, we call it lining, but it's actually lying in. And the mothers are often encouraged to not go out to face those harsh conditions because it could affect her health.
Yeah.
And that's why oftentimes in the old days, you will see them all stuff things in the different holes of the board and make the mother stay in the room. Don't come out. Don't come out for a few days, or you will get a lightning cold. All right, Lucy, thank you. Here?
You're welcome.
All right, she's right. It's lightning cold. What are we going to do? We're going to take one more? No. I'm directed by you. That's it for today. But thank you all. You've been fun as usual. I promise you, if it be God's will tomorrow, we'll have even more to share with you tomorrow. We're going to take a break right here, and we're coming back in just a moment on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're 11 minutes now to go to the hour of 8 o'clock as we turn our attention to an upcoming series of town hall meetings looking at hoping to develop a disabilities policy and also to draft some legislation relative. Joining us to talk a little bit more about that is a member of the advisory committee to improve the lives of people with disabilities, Larry Smith. Mr. Smith, good morning to you.
Morning.
There you are, Larry. Good to see you again. Let's talk a little bit about this initiative on by the Ministry of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs. Why is this so critical now as an area of focus?
I think we have not had any real legislative framework to address the needs of people with disabilities and the issues of discrimination that they face. I think, if we're honest, we can accept that pretty much within the society. We do not see people with disabilities as equal members of our society and treat them as such. So the government's view is that it is an issue that needs to be addressed in a direct way, so that the needs of people with disabilities can be safeguarded.
I like the fact that the title is a committee to improve the lives of persons with disabilities. So it's not just a case of acknowledgement, but a case to improve their lives, the quality of life as well. So in this series of town hall meetings, what is it that you want when people come to share?
What we need, what the committee needs, is that the range of people with disabilities is quite wide. I think that certainly from my own experience, we normally see disabilities if we see someone in a wheelchair, or if someone is sight impaired, or if someone is hearing impaired, you may see them sign in, and so automatically you would know, okay, that person or those group of people may have a disability. The disability which is often missed, for example, is people with cognitive disabilities as distinct from a mental incapacity. Those two things are not mutually inclusive. So you can have a cognitive disability, for example, autism, but those things are not things. You can look at a person who may have autism, who may not be able to advocate for themselves, or they may not be able to understand certain things that are being asked, or certain social dynamics. May have to have someone advocate for them, but we don't often see that. So when people come to the town hall meetings, we want as many people as possible to come out, because the range of people with disabilities is very diverse, and the needs are many, and the committee wants to be holistic in its approach to address those needs and to come up with the legislative framework and policy directives or suggestions, ultimately the commission that would be established, so that people with disabilities do not experience the kind and the level of marginalization that they already do in the society.
And I'm glad you framed it in that context, because oftentimes when you hear people with disabilities, you think of the obvious physical disability. But there are so many other forms of disability that we all, and I'm saying we all, because each of us perhaps has some form of disability that we don't even want to acknowledge. But we also want to be able to be recognized, respected, and find spaces within the community to exist and to contribute as meaningfully as anyone else. And so these series of town hall meetings create that opportunity for all of us, my reading, to be able to come together and to say to government, these are the concerns that we have as someone living with ADHD, someone living with autism, which is not physical to the eye, but I still have to grapple with this, and I do not have these kinds of services to be able to help me. And so that is, I'm supposing that's the kind of conversation you want to have when people come starting on the 15th.
Yes. Again, it is an inclusive approach, and for example, and that's highlighted in our email address, which is inclusion@barbados.gov.bb, so people can submit their not simply their experiences, but their suggestions as to the ways in which they can see, maybe in their specific experience with a disability or a loved one with a disability, what their challenges have been, and how they might have sought to address it, or the needs, and how those needs might be able to be addressed at the level of policy, at the level of legislation, at the level of meeting people's needs in a real way. And so yes, we, as many people as possible that can come out, we want that, because we want a very holistic, all-inclusive approach to addressing the issue of people with disabilities and their needs.
Here on the screen, we're showing people where and when. So this Thursday coming, the 15th, at the Barbados Workers Union at Solidarity House. Wednesday, the 21st, in Christchurch at the Ivan Harewood Centre, which, as you know, is next to the Christchurch Parish Church. Then on Thursday, the 29th, at the Alexandra School in St. Peter. And all of these meetings are open to everyone, and anyone. Meetings begin at 6:30 in the evening and to about 9 o'clock, and all will be streamed. And so we want to encourage you, whether in person or online, to add your voice to help the change, be a part of that development of a disabilities policy and legislative proposal. Now, there are people who do have disabilities who may not be conversant, but they would want to contribute. How can they do so?
Well, I'm glad you said that, Pearson. That actually goes to the issue of people who may have a cognitive disability. Their family member, their caregiver, what I like to term a caregiver advocate. If they're not conversational, for example, as some people on the autism spectrum are, they visit a doctor, the mother, the father, the grandmother, the parent, the guardian has to be the one who is going to communicate with the physician to be able to indicate what is going on with their loved one. And so that becomes an issue or an area where we want to be sure that is addressed. Because as you said, the not so obvious form of disability is that person is the most vulnerable of the group of people with disability because it's not seen.
Mm-hmm. Some would say to you, but why are we doing this? They're getting along, they're living in a society, they're achieving like everybody else. Why are we bothering with this? Why is it important, therefore, to be able to draft the policy and have these proposals in place and enshrined for the protection of those with disabilities?
The truth is that they're not getting along. And it depends on what your definition of survival is.
Mm-hmm.
If you can know some level of living somewhere, your family doing the best that they can with the limited resources that they have, in order to find some space for you within the limited space that is allotted to you, then if that's survival, then they're surviving. But I don't think that I think the issue of the absence of the sensitivity
Mm-hmm.
of the community at large, the Barbadian society, the people with disabilities, is really the main issue. We don't have the sensitivity. We are not aware. The concept is that they're pushed to the side.
Yes.
So that is a part of the problem. And the truth is, if we recognize that a person with a disability is a human being, just like the next person.
Yes.
And once we recognize or we accept that all of us is one incident away from a disability ourselves,
mm-hmm.
then perhaps our approach as a society may be different in how we relate to people with disabilities, how we include them in what we are doing. Whether that be in our schools, we should have, for example, the Individual Disabilities Education Act in the US, they speak about a least restrictive environment. So let's have that person with disability in the classroom. And again, it might not be the person who might be sight impaired, but they don't have a cognitive disability.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we do in those instances is that we sensitize, we bring the person with disability into the wider community, and they're included. And it also sensitizes us who may not have a disability to understand and appreciating our fellow human being who may have a challenge. So the society is a win-win situation for the society. And one of the key things that is missing is a lack of sensitivity within the community, within our society, within the Barbadian society, to people with disabilities.
Yes, you're quite right. I trust me, you have an advocate right here on your side in me, because one of my godsons, he has Down syndrome, and for me, it is critical that he is engaged with wider society, and I will not hide him away at all. And I would want people to be as sensitive as that. So folks, there's a lot to unpack and there's a lot to discuss. The first town hall meeting is on Thursday, the 15th. At the Barbados Workers Union at Solidarity House, beginning at 6:30, and you can watch it online or you can be there in person. You can go on Wednesday the 21st in Christchurch to the Ivan Harewood Centre, beginning again at 6:30 or online. Thursday the 29th in the north of the island at the Alexandra School in St. Peter, all meetings beginning at 6:30. But come with your varying experiences, come with your varying solutions, help to inform the policy that will be advanced by the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, so that we begin to see those policy changes and legislative action being taken by government. We want to thank everyone for engaging with this. So Larry, as always, thank you very much as a member of the committee there, and I wish you and your committee members the very best. I really hope you have a groundswell of support in this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, Pearson.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. And thank you too for joining us this morning, everyone. Always been our pleasure. My producer has been Nadia Foster. Technical director has been Samuel Mason. At sound, Christopher Blenman. And at master control, Tamisha Green. I'm Pearson Boyne. For all of them, to each of you, we say good morning. We'll see you tomorrow.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you.